Hi there Waltineers, I'm Jack and this is DSNY Newscast, and I attended an event that was previewing everything that Walt Disney World is going to have in 2026 in terms of new offerings. And basically it's going to be all about Magic Kingdom and Disney's Hollywood Studios, and today I want to focus in and talk about Hollywood Studios in greater depth in this video. But very quickly, Magic Kingdom next year, we're going to see Big Thunder Mountain Railroad reopen following a very lengthy refurbishment that has pretty much spanned the entirety of 2025. That's seen the whole roller coaster track completely replaced on that attraction. There's not been any track layout changes or anything like that, it's just a new roller coaster track on the roller coaster there. But Imagineering has used this extended downtime for the attraction as an opportunity to add new special effects and enhancements to the storyline for the attraction, as we can see here in this artwork that's been released showing one of the first lift hills within the attraction that we're going to be traversing throughout the Rainbow Caverns, and then all of a sudden there'll be a crack of thunder coming from within the mountain that will ominously transform this cavern. And this is obviously building into the storyline that we know that Big Thunder Mountain doesn't want us there. We're not welcome within Big Thunder Mountain. It doesn't want us traversing throughout the mountain and stealing the gold from the mountain. So it kind of builds into that storyline, and Imagineering are going to be adding other special effects and other show elements to this attraction. I'm sure we'll find out more about all of that in the coming months. And then in Tomorrowland next year, we're going to see Buzz Lightyear's Space Ranger Spin reopen as well, and that's going to have enhancements to the show scenes and the environments within that attraction, as well as including a new character called Buddy that you can see here in this artwork that will be within the attraction. And the big thing here is that the ride vehicles are going to get an upgrade, as there's going to be all new blasters on the ride vehicles for this attraction, and also no more of the static old targets within Space Ranger Spin. Instead, they're being replaced with all new digital targets that will be interactive and respond to the way that you aim your blaster at the target itself and respond accordingly. So it's a pretty big upgrade for Buzz Lightyear's Space Ranger Spin that will be opening next year in 2026. But now, with that being said, I want to talk about Disney's Hollywood Studios, as there's three things happening next year, no particular order here, but Animation Courtyard is going to be transformed into the magic of Disney animation. You've got the Mandalorian and Grogu being integrated within Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run with all new missions within that attraction, and then you've also got Rock and Rollercoaster starring the Muppets that will be opening in 2026. But where I actually want to begin is talking about the construction that's happening at Hollywood Studios at the moment, and that's obviously in reference to the Monstropolis area, or the Monsters Inc. land that is being built where the former Muppets Courtyard was. So quite a lot's happened here, and I want to give a special thanks to BioReconstruct over on Twitter, or X, or whichever one you want to call it, for documenting all of this construction brilliantly. And so as we can see, the first and biggest change to the former Muppets Courtyard is that the Stage 1 company store building is no more. It's been completely demolished, and that's the old merchandise location, and this was to be expected as it didn't show up in any of the artwork for the new Monstropolis area, and so they needed to get this building completely demoed to begin with, as it would make it much easier to get the construction vehicles in and out of the actual courtyard area to work on the rest of Monstropolis. So they've worked very quickly to actually demolish this building, as at the end of July it was still there, it was still standing, and then by August 1st the demo had begun on the building, and it was starting to become a pile of rubble there in the middle of the courtyard. And then by August 17th it's completely gone, and they're making ground preparations for the construction site there. Now there's the other thing I want to mention about the construction at the moment is the paving stones and also the Miss Piggy fountain outside the front of the former Muppet Vision 3D theatre have also been completely removed from this construction site, and that kind of caught me a little bit off guard, as I thought they might be reusing the existing paving stones, or at least the Miss Piggy fountain, and just changing out the statue. But instead Imagineering have clearly decided to go in the direction of getting rid of the previous hardscaping of the area and deciding to put all new hardscaping in there for Monstropolis to have it properly themed to that area. Now, as you can see in this image, the plumbing still remains and has been earmarked in the location there, so there will be another fountain that's going to be going into the exact same location, but it's going to be a completely new build of that fountain for Monstropolis there within this area. Then if you look at the buildings that surround the former Muppets Courtyard, they're all still going to be remaining, but there seems to be some preparations going on for the exterior of those buildings to maybe get some scaffolding put up and start making cosmetic changes to the exterior of those buildings, as they are going to be pretty much the same, but just, you know, small touches, so therefore it makes it thematically fit within the world of Monstropolis and reference Monsters Inc. instead of, obviously, Muppets. And that's all with the exception of Mama Melrose, which is going to see some pretty drastic thematic changes to that building, as it's going to be transformed into Harryhausen's restaurant from Monsters Inc. So they're going to be making some pretty big changes to the exterior of that building there. But given the rapid rate of construction here on this Monstropolis area, taking place in pretty much like 2 months, it starts to make me wonder about the timeline for completion on this project, as this is just speculation on my part, but given the fact that what remains within the Monstropolis area, now they've demolished the Stage 1 company store building, is a lot of external theming to the buildings, obviously internal theming to the buildings as well, and hardscaping in that area and landscaping. It makes me wonder, could they possibly be doing this in kind of a phased approach? So you have the Monstropolis Courtyard area open maybe at the end of 2026 or 2027, and then have the Monsters Inc. Door Coaster, the big e-ticket attraction, the fresh build that they're building out in the parking lot area there. Could that be opening at like 2028 as another big opening for the Monsters Inc. area? And then they kind of get double bang for their buck out of the whole Monstropolis area at Hollywood Studios. It just makes me wonder, could they be doing something like that? But then, speaking of a Monsters Inc. Door Coaster suspended roller coaster attraction, we can see that the 103,000 square foot show building site has already started ground preparation for that construction site. And the first thing that they really need to do within the construction is already taking place. Foundation work is already beginning to the side of the main show building, and it looks like there's pipe work there and electrical wiring and cabling going into the ground there to the side of the new attraction. So already the preliminary infrastructure work is already happening on this construction site there. And coming back to the pathway itself is going to be somewhere between 250 to maybe 260 feet long if you walk from Monstropolis Courtyard all the way out to the Monsters Inc. Door Coaster attraction entrance. And to put that into context for you, that is the same distance as it would be to walk from one end of Grand Avenue all the way to the other end of Grand Avenue and into the Galaxy's Edge tunnel there leading into that land. And I bring this up because as you're walking towards the Monsters Inc. Door Coaster, that attraction show building, the gravity box, which is what they call it in terms of roller coaster speak here, is going to be huge. It's going to be massive, and they're going to be using the enormous scale of that building as part of the theming for this attraction to kind of build in that whole idea of it being the Monsters Inc. HQ building. But as you exit that attraction, you'll be walking back towards the Monstropolis Courtyard. You will be able to see, sightline wise, the back of Mama Melrose's building and also the back of the Rise of the Resistance show building. And it just makes me wonder, are Imagineering going to be theming the exterior of those buildings to keep the world building the same for Monsters Inc. and keep the sightlines thematically grounded? They might find a different way to obscure that view, like a tree line or something like that, lining the pathway. They might do it that way, or they might theme the actual buildings, but something to keep an eye on there. And then another thing I want to talk about is the construction timeline. And we need to keep an eye out on the way they construct this roller coaster, because it will indicate to us whether we can expect this thing to be built fairly quickly or might take a little bit longer. And that is, there's two ways to construct this. They could either pour the concrete bed for the actual show building and then start to construct the roller coaster in plain sight and show us the actual roller coaster being built, and then they kind of enclose it with a show building afterwards, which is the way they've done things like Rock and Roller Coaster in the past. They build it first and then they just enclose it within a show building. Makes it much easier to actually build the entire coaster track and then do it that way. Or they could go the Cosmic Rewind direction with this, and they could build the huge show building first and then bring the coaster track in and assemble it in place inside the fixed parameters of the gravity box, which is kind of like assembling a ship in a bottle basically. So quite difficult to do, and that probably take a little bit longer to do because you're working within the fixed location of the show building. Now personally, I'm leaning towards, I think that they'll build the coaster track in plain sight of our view and then construct the building around it afterwards, as they've already shown us a model at D23 of what we can kind of expect from this roller coaster track there, so they don't seem to be being too secretive about the actual track itself. And if they do build it that way, then it should be a fairly fast construction, and I reckon it'll be targeting roughly around 2028 if I was just to make a guess at when this will open. Now, going from one roller coaster in terms of a door coaster to another roller coaster, and that is Rock and Roller Coaster starring the Muppets. And we've actually got some new details, some new artwork, and I want to talk about Rock and Roller Coaster starring the Muppets. Now, the first thing I want to talk about here is timeline, as we still don't have a closing date yet for Rock and Roller Coaster starring Aerosmith, and we know that the new attraction is going to be opening in 2026, so it's going to be a fairly quick turnaround time there, all within the same calendar year of 2026. Now, we've got new concept art, and as I previously rumoured about this, the larger-than-life electric guitar outside the attraction is going to get an all-new paint job for this attraction, and it's going to be a psychedelic paint job that will be inspired by the Electric Mayhem's tour bus. And the piano outside the front of the electric guitar will feature a gold key, which will be a reference to Dr. Teeth's gold tooth that he has. And then in terms of a storyline, the idea is that Scooter's uncle, who's the real estate tycoon and owner of the Muppet Theatre in the TV series, J.P. Gross, has bought G-Force Records, and that's now where the Muppets will be producing music for Electric Mayhem. Now, stop me if you've heard this one before, but the idea behind this is that we're going to be VIP guests going inside of G-Force Records, and in the pre-show area we'll be walking into the recording studio as Electric Mayhem are going to be laying down some new tracks, and then they're told that they need to get to the other side of town as quickly as possible for their concert, which is the exact same narrative and idea behind Rock and Roller Coaster starring Aerosmith. Now, personally, I would have liked to see Imagineering come up with a different idea to, have it be G-Force Records and some sort of mayhem and Muppet antics go on in the pre-show area, which possibly that might still happen, but it's very much the same Rock and Roller Coaster, but just remove Aerosmith and put Electric Mayhem in instead. Now, coming back to the pre-show artwork here, we have had it confirmed that there'll be 3 animatronics within the physical space of the recording studio. So you can have the 2 penguins at the recording desk there, and then also Scooter will be an animatronic figure as well. So 3 animatronics within that pre-show area. That's a win in my books compared to Rock and Roller Coaster starring Aerosmith, which didn't have any animatronics. So good to see animatronics there. Now, coming to the on-ride theming, it's going to be a limousine ride over to the other side of town, but it's been mentioned already that it's going to be using Muppet Labs technology, which it means that it's very likely that we're going to see Dr. Bunsen Honeydew and Beaker in the loading area or the launch area for Rock and Roller Coaster. Now, personally, following on from those animatronics that we saw in the pre-show, I would love to see Dr. Bunsen Honeydew and Beaker in animatronic form, but it is possible that they might be in digital media form, like we see in the pre-show where Kermit and Miss Piggy and the Electric Mayhem will be in digital media on the screens there. And then also I want to mention the fact that it's been said it's going to feature iconic scenery and landmarks of Tinseltown with a Muppet twist. This to me sounds like they're going to be reusing or repurposing the existing show set elements, but just Muppetfying them, basically, giving them a bit of a Muppet twist to the show set elements. I would really like to see all new show set elements within the attraction show building, reuse some of them, but add even more to it. And I've said this previously, but you don't even need to do advanced animatronics or even limited motion animatronics. Just Muppet characters in static figure form, because we'll be going past them so quickly. All they need to do is light up and show a different funny vignette along the way. And the reason why I'm gonna still remain hopeful that we're gonna see more Muppets within the attraction is because the branding of the attraction is Rock and Roller Coaster starring the Muppets, not Rock and Roller Coaster starring the Electric Mayhem. And so I'm hoping there's more Muppets in this attraction, because otherwise, from a branding perspective, I understand the name recognition, but it would be misleading not to call it Electric Mayhem if it's all about the Electric Mayhem. I'd like to see more Muppets within this roller coaster. So we'll see what we get in terms of more theming. I'm sure there'll be more artwork that comes out showing the on-ride experience for Rock and Roller Coaster here. And then another big part of this ride is obviously the music, and Disney has stated here that the soundtrack will be of iconic rockin' hits performed by the Electric Mayhem. So it sounds like the Electric Mayhem are going to be covering iconic rock songs for this attraction. And if that's what they're going to be doing, then that is going to be a huge win for this attraction, I think. I said this in my previous video talking about what I would like to see from this project, and just going off what we've seen on the Muppets YouTube channel, you know, the Electric Mayhem have covered Kodachrome and Mr. Blue Sky in recent years, and I know 10 or 15 years ago the Muppets almost broke the internet when they did Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody as a music video. And just if we got all of those kinds of songs on this attraction and it was different songs each time, that would be amazing for this rock and roller coaster. So hopeful that we get some really great songs on Rock and Roller Coaster with the Muppets and the Electric Mayhem covering those songs. Now, the last thing I want to talk about this attraction is, in the Parks blog article, it was mentioned that JP Gross is the owner of the Muppet Theatre and the new owner of G-Force Records. Now, the reason why I want to bring this up is because it seems as if that reference to the Muppets Theatre is talking about the TV show, where he's the owner of the Muppets Theatre that happens in the Muppet Show. But there's also a theatre that's right next to G-Force Records, which is the Sunset Showcase Theatre, where Villains and Fairly Ever After currently is. And if they really want to build this whole Muppet area and this storyline of JP Gross being the owner of a theatre and also G-Force Records, could we possibly see a new Muppet theatre attraction go into that theatre at some point in the future? As once Villains Land opens, probably in 2029, just throwing a guess out there, but Disney will most likely want to keep all of the villains within Villains Land, because to have them dispersed across other parks kind of removes the unique selling point of Villains Land being where all the villains are. And so for that reason alone, I think Villains and Fairly Ever After probably will be transformed into something else. And so if that was a return of Muppet Vision 3D, I think that would be fantastic. I think everybody would be over the moon to hear that news. I certainly would be. Or alternatively, if they want to go in a different direction and have like a new Muppets theatre show with new Muppets animatronics, I would also be pleased about that as well. But I think it would be great if they make it all cohesive within the same storyline. Now, that's not all in terms of Hollywood Studios next year, as Animation Courtyard is going to be seeing a pretty drastic transformation from the sea of concrete that it is right now to an all-new area called the Magic of Disney Animation that will have all-new placemaking, you know, landscaping, hardscaping and theming in general in that area. And Animation Courtyard and Disney Junior will be closed beginning Thursday, September 25th, 2025 to begin this transformation. And as part of this, Star Wars Launch Bay is going to be no more. You can wave goodbye to that, as it's going to be reimagined back into the magic of Disney animation. I say back into because if you remember, before Star Wars Launch Bay opened in 2015, it was called the Magic of Disney Animation. So it is returning to Hollywood Studios, but the name itself is returning. Now, inside the Magic of Disney Animation, inside the show building there, it will have many interactive exhibits. There's going to be portraits that will be coming to life, drawing lessons from Disney animators to learn to sketch Disney characters, so kind of a animation academy there. There's going to be a short film with a twist, which will probably be going into the theatre that they've got within that building, which is where Path of the Jedi, I believe, was played before. And there's going to be multiple character greeting locations, and also, this is a big one for families out there of little ones like me, there's going to be an indoor play area for the kids that's going to be themed to Alice in Wonderland, and it's going to be inspired by Mary Blair's art style, and it's going to be called Drawn to Wonderland. And just knowing that there's a new playground coming to Hollywood Studios, but not just that, an indoor play area with AC, it's a fantastic idea. So I think that's going to be a huge win and very popular at Hollywood Studios here. Then the other thing, the Courtyard transformation, the thing that I think a lot of people are excited about is the exterior theming. Now, the outside of the Magic of Disney Animation building is going to resemble the Roy E. Disney Animation building, which is over at the Walt Disney Studios lot in Burbank, California. And as part of that, we're going to see a Sorcerer Mickey hat return to Disney's Hollywood Studios as well, but as part of the exterior of this building. And another massive change is that the old Disney MGM Studios arch, which has been there since opening day, is going to be completely demolished for this new Magic of Disney animation, as it's going to be replaced with an entranceway which will resemble the entrance gate of a Walt Disney Studios lot. And just removing that arch will open it up, so therefore people will see what's going on over in that area and draw them down into that area. And there's going to be plenty of shaded seating there, and there's also going to be a new show within the Disney Junior soundstage. And personally, I think this might be the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse show that just debuted over at Disney California Adventure. I saw that back in May and it was fantastic. So if they were to bring that to Hollywood Studios, I think that would be very popular. It's a great show. So who knows? We'll see what gets announced for the Disney Junior soundstage. Then the other thing I want to talk about with Animation Courtyard is Bluey. And the reason for this is because in December of last year, the 19th of December 2024, it was announced that Bluey will be joining the Disneyland Resort and Walt Disney World in Florida in 2025. And ever since we had that announcement, it's been crickets. We haven't heard anything more on where Bluey as a character meet and greet will be going, or even if it is a character meet and greet, or if it's a new show or something like that, will be going at Walt Disney World, or Disneyland for that matter. I think Hollywood Studios makes the most sense for Bluey to arrive as a meet and greet or a new stage show or something like that. And personally, I think a great location would be this new transformation of Animation Courtyard. But we'll see what happens. If they're closing down Animation Courtyard and they want to keep to the 2025 timeframe, it probably won't be Animation Courtyard. So unless they announce it's been pushed off into 2026, then I think it's more likely it will be in this location. But keep an eye out on that as well. And that's not all for Hollywood Studios next year, as in May of 2026, May 22nd to be precise, Mando and Grogu will be debuting as part of Millennium Falcon's Smuggler's Run. And this debut of the new missions within the attraction will be to coincide with The Mandalorian and Grogu, the theatrical release of that movie in theatres. But this is going to be a completely new mission for the attraction here. And there's going to be 3 new destinations within the attraction. One's Bespin, the cloud-covered city. And then you've got the wreckage of the second Death Star that will be floating above Endor. And then you've also got Coruscant as well as a third destination. And the important thing here is that the engineer role within the Millennium Falcon is going to be enhanced. So the engineer won't just be sat there just pressing a few buttons. The role of the engineer will be to look after Grogu and make sure he's well fed throughout the journey, and also the engineer's role will get to select the destination planet that the rest of the crew navigates towards and, does everything else towards. So the engineer role goes from being a pretty passive role at the back of the Falcon cabin there to being a more active role in the experience. So that's a good move there for Millennium Falcon. And so, with that being said for today, that's everything for 2026 at Walt Disney World that we know about so far in terms of new offerings. But now, it's over to you, Waltineers. I would like to know, what are your thoughts and opinions on all of this? What are you most excited to see in 2026 at Walt Disney World? And if they were to announce anything else that hasn't been announced yet for 2026, what do you think could possibly get announced? Personally, I think it could be possible that the new Monsters Inc. show within the Monstropolis area could debut towards the end of 2026, depending on how quickly the construction there, turns around on that new attraction. That's possible. I think isn't out of the realm of possibility into that new theatre that's going to be called the Glob Theatre there. But who knows? We might get a surprise announcement, something like that. But I'd love to hear from you in the comments section as well. And with that being said, be sure to subscribe down below, hit the notification bell, and also check out the rest of the videos on this channel. And I'd also like to give a massive thank you to the official Waltineer Club over on Patreon for always supporting this channel, and also a huge shout out to the official Waltineer Gold members that you can see here on the screen right now, and also Waltineer Diamond members JC Russell, Justin Tupper, Tim Parsons and Clive Simmons. And with that being said for today, I've been Jack, you've been you, and I'll see you real soon.